and identification. Okay? So let's start with the definitions first. Okay lang ba kasi meron na akong mga annotations na nagamit dito. And then, ito rin yung mga nabanggit ko sa mga previous na section. And by the way, the learning materials were provided pala by Ma'am Rochelle. Okay? So kaya meron akong mga additional notes na dinagdag. Okay? So anyway, let's talk about microbiology. So let's define it. So that would be the study of microorganism. So pag sinabi nating mga microorganisms, defined again as diverse group of microscopic. Pag sinabi nating microscopic, meaning we need to use the aid of a microscope for us to be able to visualize it. Ibig sabihin guys, hindi po ito makikita by only using our naked eye. So therefore, we need to use the microscope for us to be able to see it. Kailangan siyang i-magnify. Now, these living microorganisms could be either unicellular or multicellular. Pag sinabi natin unicellular, it is only made up of one cell. Ang isang organism, isang cell lang siya. Pag sinabi natin multicellular, it's made up of multiple or clusters of cells. So may mga organisms na isa lang, may mga microorganisms na made up of multiple cells. Okay, so we'll know later ano-ano yung mga cells, ano-ano mga microorganisms yon. But definitely, for microorganisms, two divisions, okay? There are two divisions, We can divide them as to whether they are cellular or acellular, right? So, etong mga cellular na mga organisms na to, ito yung may uni or multicellular, okay? Siyempre, pag sinabi nating acellular, the first letter A there means absence of cell. Ibig sabihin, hindi po sila considered as a cell, okay? Yung mga acellular. So kasi wala silang cellular organelles. Unlike yung mga cellular. Yung mga cellular, ito po yung may mga what you've learned in your biology, ito yung mga nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, etc. Alright? So according to the references, of course, so sino-sino yung mga cellular or sino-sino yung mga cellular microorganisms? So that would be including the bacteria, fungi, the parasite. And yung acellular, yung sinasabi natin na walang cellular organelles and hindi sila considered as a cell, that is virus. So yung mga viruses, they are only made up of biomolecules such as protein and nucleic acid. So yung nucleic acid, that would be RNA or DNA lang. Hindi pwedeng both ang laman ng virus. Kailangan isang nucleic acid lang, either RNA yan or DNA plus protein. Okay? Tapos, may mga viruses na may lipid, may mga viruses na walang lipid. Okay? So later, we will discuss it further. Okay? But for now, please do take note of the divisions and the ones belonging to the cellular and acellular group. Okay? So, before we continue with the different microorganisms, the characteristics of the microorganisms, let us start first with the branches. So, nasan ba tayo among these branches? So, number one, we have the medical microbiology. Sa medical microbiology, guys, it is a broad branch of microbiology. Why? Because there are a lot of disciplines under it. At kasama doon yung course na tinitake nyo ngayon. That is clinical bacteriology or otherwise known as diagnostic bacteriology. Alright, under tayo ng medical micro. Now, what is medical micro muna? Or what is medical micro at its definition? So, una po, when you say medical micro, that would be dealing or focusing on the relationship between the microorganism and the human and animals. Ano bang role ng microorganism sa human health and animal health? Alright? So, ibig pong sabihin, we're more focused here on the diseases that they cause. Okay? So ngayon, saan papasok yung diagnostic microbiology or specifically diagnostic bacteriology? We are more focused on the laboratory procedures, laboratory identification of these particular microorganism that causes the disease or that cause the infection. So dun po tayo para matulungan natin sila So, sino ba itong kanino namang profession, no? Itong medical micro. So, that would be taken up by yung mga doctors, medicine, okay? Even nursing students. They are kasi focused on, more focused on the diagnosis of the disease, the treatment of the disease, and the prevention of the disease. So doon tayo papasok sa diagnostic side nila. Okay. So we help them diagnose a specific disease or a specific infection by performing laboratory procedures. All right? So doon tayo sa diagnostic bacteriology. Understood? So pag narinig niyo yung medical micro, that would be the part of the curriculum of medicine and nursing. Okay po? Tayo, diagnostic microbiology. Understood? Tapos, iba din yung microbiology sa public health. Sa public health naman, it's more concerned about the control, monitoring, and prevention so that it will not spread. Yung disease will not spread in community. So, kung halimbawa sa medical microbiology, no, sa medicine at saka sa nursing, mas focus sila sa paano ma-diagnose yung sakit, mga signs and symptoms. Halimbawa, pagka nagkaroon ng, let's say, urinary tract infection. What are the signs and symptoms? What are the treatment? No? Pagdating naman sa atin, for the urinary tract infection, what are the laboratory procedures to identify the pathogen? Alright, punta muna tayo sa word na pathogen. Pag sinabi mong pathogen, guys, these are the microorganisms, whether that is bacteria, fungi, parasite, virus, that are able to cause disease or infection. So, ibig sabihin, hindi lahat ng microorganism ay capable mag-cause ng disease. Okay, there are some microorganisms that are non-pathogenic. Pag sinabi natin non-pathogenic, hindi nagko-cause ng infection. Naiintindihan po ba? Hindi po ibig sabihin na when you hear the word microorganism, these are capable of causing diseases agad. No, hindi po. Ang microorganism, may pathogenic syempre at saka may non-pathogenic. Naiintindihan? Okay, now, of course, sa medical microbiology, doon tayo mag-focus sa mga pathogenic. How do we diagnose the infection that is caused by pathogenic microorganism? How do we treat it? Okay, sa atin naman, paano natin i-identify through the laboratory procedures? Okay, sa public health naman, they are more on the mode of transmission. Okay, ibig sabihin, pag alam nila yung mode of transmission, alam nila kung paano ito prevent, etc. So hindi sila nagfo-focus naman sa laboratory diagnosis. Naintindihan? Okay, so these are the institutions that are working in public health. So we have the US Public Health Service, kapag sa US, sa Pilipinas, the DOH, okay, the CDC or the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and then the World Health Organization. Okay, next. Another branch would be the immunology. So yes, part po ang immunology under ng microbiology. Bakit? Kasi, first let us define what is immunology. That would be the study of our immune system. So, why is it one of the branches? Because our immune system has a role in preventing the infection or preventing the occurrence of the infection. Kasi there are cells and substances in our body. So example, yung mga protective substances like antibody, familiar kayo doon, right? Complement, inflammation, right? Tapos sa cells, nandiyan ang mga WBC like for example, your neutrophil as phagocyte, your monocyte as macrophage, the NK cell or the natural killer cells, the T lymphocyte, the B lymphocyte, etc. So yung substances at saka yung cells na yan, they work together. Yun yung tinatawag natin humoral at saka cellular response. They work together to respond against the infection or any malignancy. Okay? Ngayon, tatandaan ninyo na your body, okay, our body has the capability to recognize. So whenever a certain substance, molecule, cell entered our body, it can recognize whether that is self or non-self. What do you mean when you say self or non-self? Meaning, kaya niyang i-recognize, are you part of the system? If you're not part of the system, then you are non-self. So kung hindi kanya kilala, yung parehong substance at cells na yan, hindi niya na-recognize, hindi ka taga dito sa katawan, no, ng host, then that should be eliminated. I-eliminate po yan. Okay. So, ngayon, as part of your immune system, tandaan niyo may tatlong line of defense tayo. I hope you're familiar with that already, no? Kasi nabanggit naman siguro to sa MLSP ninyo or may mga iba sa inyo na so of course wala pa nakapag-take dito ng IMS. Pero na po ba? Kasi prerequisite ng IMS itong subject na to. Meron na po ba sa mga nakaraang curriculum? Kasi dati hindi pa ini-implement ang prerequisite. Okay. So meron na. So for nag-start kasi tayo nung last year, I think, we are implementing already the prerequisite. So ibig sabihin, guys, kailangan po maipasa muna ninyo ang bacteriology before immunoserology. That would be next semester naman. Okay, doon matututunan ninyo that we have 3 lines of defenses. So the first, the second, and the third. Yung first line of defense natin would be the barrier. Yung skin, yung mga secretions natin sa katawan, etc. So pag na-breach si first line, then si second line of defense magre-react or magre-respond. So sino tong second line of defense? Sila phagocyte. Okay? Si inflammation. Pag hindi pa rin po, pag na-breach pa rin ang second line of defense, magre-react or magre-respond naman ang third line. So sa third line, dito napapasok sila antibody, dito napapasok sila T-cell, okay, NK cell, etc. Pag na-breach pa rin ang third line, tsaka na po makakapag-cause ng infection. Okay? So that's how infection works. So therefore, immunology is part of microbiology because the immunology responds, no, to the infection. Do you understand? Okay. Another would be the industrial microbiology. So dito naman, ginagamit natin ng microbial metabolism kasi kumbaga parang tinitake advantage natin yung microbial metabolism para makagawa tayo ng certain product. Okay, like for example, we use fungi to create food, like for example, bread, mga alcoholic beverages such as wine, beer, ginagamit natin yun for fermentation. Okay? Ginagamit din natin ng fungi, example, okay, kilala niyo si penicillin, right? So, si penicillium, yun yung naging source ng antibiotic na penicillin. Okay? So, still, ginagamit natin yung ilang microorganism like fungi to develop antibiotics. Okay? We also use other microorganisms to produce vitamins, enzymes, amino acids. So, kumbaga tinitake advantage natin yung mechanical metabolism or yung structures or yung part physiology nila para makagawa tayo ng product. So that is industrial microbiology. Okay? Next, agricultural naman, like what I've mentioned earlier, hindi naman lahat ng microorganism nagkukos ng infection sa human. Right? So, meron din namang iba na non-pathogenic sa human pero pathogenic sa animal, pathogenic sa plant. So if the plant and the animals are farm animals or farm crops, then that would be agricultural microbiology naman. Understood? Also, it is involved in creating soil, associated in soil fertility. Ano naman yung soil fertility? So in short, in Tagalog, no, pagpapataba ng lupa. Okay, ganito kasi yan, di ba? Yung lupa, kapag nagtanim ka dyan, yung tinanim mo, na-absorb yung nutrient mula sa soil. So, nababawasan yung nutrient ng soil. So, what happens is that, kung familiar kayo, no, meron tayong mga ginagawang mga fertilizers. Like, for example, natural fertilizers, yung mga manure, animal manure, yung mga pinagbalatan, no, yung mga scrap mula sa mga gulay, diba? Hinahalo natin yon sa soil to make it fertile. Why? Bakit? Paano nagiging fertile yon? Because the soil contains microorganisms as well. Merong mga microorganism doon katulad ng fungi. Okay, anong ginagawa ng fungi? Dine-decompose niya yon. So, when you say decomposition, yung nilagay mong animal manure sa lupa, yung nilagay mong scrap ng mga pinagbalatan halimbawa ng mga tawag dito, ng mga gulay, no? Binubulok, no? Bini-break down yon na yung organic debris na meron doon, it is broken down by these fungi, and then mababalik yun sa soil. So pag nagtanim ka ulit, it's fertile. Okay? So another would be environmental microbiology. Ito naman, microorganism, ano rin man ang relationship ng microorganism at saka yung habitat. Like for example, sa water, aquatic, sa soil, or sa mga terrestrial parts ng planet natin. So soil. Geomicrobiology, sa Earth's crust, ano yung mga microorganisms na meron doon. Astrobiology or exobiology, that would be yung mga microorganisms outside our planet. So halimbawa, yung mga nanggaling dati sa moon, no? So kumukuha sila ng sample, tapos 'di ba may robot tayo ngayon sa Mars. So kapag halimbawang nakakapagpadala ng sample from there to here. So in-identify natin yung mga microorganisms na nandun. So that's astrobiology. Okay? So next, let us move on to the historical foundation. So let me begin with the development of the microscope. So dito kasi talaga una munang nag-start lahat. Ibig sabihin, nakita muna natin yung microorganism bago tayo nagtanong ng maraming bagay. Diba? Of course, yung existence muna nung microorganism. And then, tsaka tayo nag-question, saan nanggaling yan? Ano yung naging importance or use ng mga microorganisms na yan, etc. So let's start with the development of the microscope because I've mentioned earlier, no, kanina sinabi ko, na hindi po ito nakikita just by using the naked eye. So kailangan ng microscope. So, sino ba ang una, according to the record, nakagawa ng microscope? That was Descartes. Descartes actually made a crude form of microscope, but then the quality is not enough or sufficient para ma-observe yung microorganism. Therefore, yung magnification nung ginawa ni Descartes, hindi ganon kataas. Okay? Mababa yung magnification. Doon nakapag-magnify naman siya ng object, but then hindi siya ganon kataas or enough para makita ang microorganism. So, hindi po siya associated sa microbiology. Okay? Next, si Robert Hooke naman, gumawa din siya ng microscope na mas mataas ang magnification compared kay Descartes kasi according to evidences na kita for the first time ang cellular structure. Pero hindi to cellular structure ng microorganism. Okay? Therefore, it was only Anton van Leeuwenhoek kasi may evidence na nakagawa siya ng drawing ng bacteria. That was in 1684. Okay? Yung kay Robert Hooke, that is in 1667. So yung kay Anton van Leeuwenhoek, nung Anthony or Anton, parehas lang yan, that would be accepted. Okay? Now, gumawa siya ng drawing ng bacteria, alright, in 1684. So ano yung nakita niya? At ano ba yung sample na tinignan niya? Si Robert Hooke, he looked at 3 barks. Okay? Si Anton van Leeuwenhoek, kumuha siya ng water sample. So, he get the rainwater, well water, seawater, then he infused it with peppercorns, and then he looked at it using his microscope. Then he saw these animal feuds. So, of course, hindi pa niya tinawag na bacteria at protozoa dati, no? Ang akala niya, mga animals yon, ang description niya, they are very tiny animals. So, kaya po animal, tapos feuds. Kasi maliliit, parang molecules. Okay? Animal, feuds. So, therefore, dahil siya nga ang, according to record, nakakita ng una, no, ng mga microscopic living organisms, therefore, he was coined as the father of microbiology, father of bacteriology, and father of protozoology. Okay, so ano yung nakita niya sa microscope? Sa bacteria, yung mga bacilli, yung mga rod shape, sa bacteria, yung mga bilog, like yung mga cocci-form. So, yun yung mga una niyang nakita. Okay? Now, nung nakita na yung living organisms, saka na tayo nag-question ng maraming bagay. Alright? So, katulad ng, saan yan galing? Okay? Where did it came from? So, what's its origin? Life. No? The life itself. It's a living organism. So ngayon, nagtataka sila, saan nanggaling ba talaga ang life? So kaya po nagkaroon dati ng malaking debate sa mga scientists, and we call it the spontaneous generation. So spontaneous generation is also known as abiogenesis. So pag sinabi natin abiogenesis, that's the absence of the beginning of life. Beginning of the absence of life. What does that mean? Ibig po sabihin, naniniwala po yung ibang scientists na ang life nanggaling from non-living material. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, katulad nito, let me give you an example. Yung mga supporters ng spontaneous generation, no? One is John Baptist von Helmont. So, he believed that when you place a rug with kernel in an open container, okay? So, yan yung representation niya ng non-living. You leave it for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, may mag-a-arise na mga mice, rats. And that's the representation of life. So, ang theory niya, na ang mga rats nanggaling sa basahan at saka sa wicker net. But of course, we won't believe that nowadays, di ba? Sa current na development sa science, hindi po natin yan i-accept ngayon. Kasi alam naman natin na pwedeng maaaring source ng food, kaya pumunta dyan yung rat, di ba? Pwedeng source of shelter, right? Kaya napunta dyan yung rat. So, that's one example. No? Hindi na natin ibibigay yung iba pang mga example kasi marami yan. Kasi malaki ang debate dati yan sa science, no? In the field of science. Now, pag-usapan natin si Louis Pasteur. Hindi siya naniniwala sa spontaneous generation. Alright? He disapproved spontaneous generation. He did not believe in spontaneous generation. Understood? So, gumawa siya ng experiment to prove it. So, ito po yung experiment na yun. Okay. Okay, please bear with me. Ayan, medyo marami-rami lang akong naisulat. Hindi ko na kasi binura kasi baka may mga makalimutan akong banggitin sa inyo na nabanggit ko sa ibang section, tapos may madadagdag ako na hindi ko nabanggit sa kabilang section. So, it's better this way na lang para pantay-pantay lahat, no? Anyway, now, let's talk about the setup first. Okay? Pag-usapan natin yung setup niya. So, una, yung gumamit siya ng flask, a specialized flask, which is shaped like a, nakita nyo tong ito, yan. Nakita nyo tong parang end ng flask? Yan yung tinatawag natin na swan neck flask. Why swan neck? Kasi it is curved downward and then may opening po siya slightly upward. So open po ito. Bakit open? So even if it is open, okay, mape-prevent niya pa rin yung mga possible na papasok sa system. Okay? So, itong curve na to will prevent anything, no, that will enter the system. So, ano ba tong sa loob? Ano ba tong system na to sa loob? So, this is made up of broth. So, broth. Okay? Ngayon, yung broth na yan is boiled or was boiled. By the way, etong broth na to, ito yung representation ng non-living matter dito sa experiment. Okay? Tapos, yung microbial growth, after they leave it, no, yun yung life. Kung meron bang tutubong mga living microorganisms dyan. Okay? So, yung broth, before the beginning, just to make sure na talagang walang laman. Okay? Nag-undergo to ng sterilization. Boiling, rigorous boiling, para talagang ma-make sure na walang matitirang living cells. Understood? So nakita po ito, pinakuluan. Right? So it's free. So bali dalawang setup yung prepare niya. Yung isa, alright, iniwan niya na sira. So pinutol niya yung swan neck flask. Yung isa naman, it remained intact. So buo pa rin. Okay? So ang ine-expect natin, kung totoo ang spontaneous generation, look at the result below. If the spontaneous generation is true, remember, when you say spontaneous generation, living, no, or life came from non-living material, diba? Or it will arise from non-living material. Kung totoo ang spontaneous generation, whether or not sinira mo yan or it still remained intact, dapat may growth. Dapat may microbial growth. Kasi dun mismo dapat sa broth manggagaling, di ba? Walang kinalaman ng external environment. Right? If spontaneous generation is true. But then, look at the result. Nung nasira yung swan neck or nung sinira niya yung swan neck, what happened after he left it for incubation? Ayan, may growth. Okay? May growth po. Dito naman, it is still sterile. Ibig sabihin, walang growth. Right? Saan nanggaling? So, saan nanggaling yung microbial growth dito? It is from the environment. Kaya nga ang sabi niya, microbes are airborne. Ibig pong sabihin, nanggaling po sa external environment. Kasi, diretso di ba? Putol yung Schwanneck flask. So, the microorganism directly went to the system from the external environment. Kaya nga ang theory niya, microbes may be airborne. So, galing daw sa air. Kasi nung dito, the reason why the swan neck is curved, it's because if something will enter the system, it will be trapped. So, ganun nga yung nangyari. Right? Natrap nga doon dito sa intact, no? Natrap nga siya dito sa curve. Hindi nakapasok. Okay? Yung microbes paloob. Kaya after na iniwan niya to for incubation, wala pong naging growth. So, ibig sabihin, hindi galing sa broth. Saan galing? Galing sa labas. Yung microbial growth. Do you understand? That's why malakas yung evidence niya that this spontaneous generation is not true. Do you understand? Malinaw po yung Pasteur's experiment. May tanong, clarification, or question? Wala, okay. Next, move on tayo kay John Needham. So, actually, halos parehas lang naman yung ginawa ni John Needham at saka si Louis Pasteur. Ang pinagkaiba lang, si John Needham, hindi naging successful yung ginawa niyang experiment. Parehas sila ni Louis Pasteur. Hindi din naniniwala si John Needham sa spontaneous generation. Kaso nga lang, yung experimentation ni John Needham hindi successful. Katulad kay Louis Pasteur. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, let's look at the experimentation. Yung flask na ginamit niya, that's number one, no? It's not similar to the design of the flask used by Louis Pasteur. He used an ordinary flask. Yung flask na may butas yung derecho. Okay, derecho na sa taas yung opening. Okay, then, ganun din, may broth sa loob. Tapos, pinakuluan niya rin. Yun nga lang, number two. The difference is that he only boiled it for several minutes. Hindi ka rigorous. Okay, hindi ganon kainit katulad nung kay Louis Pasteur. Okay, that's the second. Okay, problem. Though sinil niya naman, no, after niya pakuluan, sinil niya naman, but still the liquid became cloudy. Okay? So, what could be the problem? Right? What could be the problem in John Needham's experiment? Yung pangalawa, the number two. Okay? Sabi ko yung flask at saka yung boiling, no, process niya. It wasn't enough to kill everything or to kill all the possible living organisms that's in there. Kasi meron tayong tinatawag na mga bacterial spore. Okay, anyway, bago muna yan, dito tayo sa baba. Okay, let us differentiate what is this infection from sterilization. Because these are two different concepts. Pag sinabi natin sterilization, you are killing all the life forms. Okay? Kasi ang mga microorganism, guys, may hierarchy yan. Yung more resistant in killing and the least resistant in killing. Ibig sabihin, yung merong mga microorganisms na mahirap patayin, may mga microorganisms na madaling patayin. So may hierarchy. Hindi ibig sabihin na tinreat mo sila with heat, tinreat mo sila ng radiation, all of them will die at the same time. No. May hierarchy po yan. May mga madali. Kasi iba-iba ang composition ng mga microorganism, di ba? Okay. So, may mga bacteria na hindi madaling patayin. Like, for example, yung mga mayroong spore as the structure. So, parang ang nangyari nun, halimbawa, ito yung bacteria. Kapag in-expose mo to sa mainit na environment, it will develop or it will produce, no, a structure that will cover itself, no, that will protect itself from decaying or from desiccation or from being killed. Pero pag napatay mo yung ganong klase ng bacteria, that is, or the method is sterilization. Do you get it? Pero pag hindi namatay lahat ng life forms, may natira pa rin, that's only disinfection. Do you understand? So meaning, yung ginawa ni John Needham is only a disinfection. Yung ginawa ni Louis Pasteur, it's a sterilization. Nakuha po ba? Okay. Now, let me talk about that spore. Okay, yung tinutukoy ko kaninang spore, no? So halimbawa, ito pong illustration natin. Yan. So, kapag ang, by the way, when you say bacterial spore, no, it is a structure of a bacterium that protects itself from desiccation. Upon exposure, saglit lang, dagdag natin. Ano sinabi ko kanina? Extreme. Okay. So halimbawa, ayan nga yung bacteria, in-expose mo halimbawa sa high heat. Yan. What will happen? So, if they are capable of producing the spore, no, it will protect the bacteria from being killed. So, dalawa lang naman yung spore-forming bacteria, dalawang genera lang ang spore-forming bacteria. Tandaan nyo na si B at saka si C. B, C. Madali naman yan kasi magkasunod naman yung letter sa alphabet, no? Bacillus at Clostridium, spore-forming. Those are the only two genera, pathogenic na bacteria na capable mag-produce ng bacterial spore. Okay? Okay, sige po. Okay na tayo dito? Can we move on? Nakopya na po ba? Guys, speaking of face-to-face lecture, anong room ang nakalagay sa inyo? For section 8. 8 muna. Ano nakalagay sa registration card ninyo? Paki-check naman, please. And then the same goes with section 11. Section 11. Ano yung nakalagay sa room, na room assignment ninyo? CAS 505. Okay, sige. Ano to? Ano to? Wait lang. 505. Dash 11, 502. Okay. Ano ba yung pinakamalaking room? 505, 503, 501, ganon? 505, malaki na yun. 503, malaki na yun, ano? Okay, tayo lang naman siguro gagamit ng Saturday. Okay. 501. 501, malaki. Sige. Ano na lang tayo, guys. I'll let you know kung ano yung lecture room na gagamitin natin. No? Hanap tayo ng malaking room na mag-fit tayong lahat every Saturday. Okay? Sige. Alright, so pwede na tayo mag-move. Okay? So eto pa. Let's move on to the discovery of spore, okay, and sterilization. So let's talk about John Tyndall. So he discovered this sterilization technique that is known as tyndallization. So, kasi siya yung unang nakapag-provide ng evidence na, di ba naalala niyo kay John Needham na hindi na patay lahat ng microorganisms, di ba? Si John Tyndall ang unang nag-provide ng evidence na, may mga high heat resistant na microorganism. Okay? Ibig sabihin, hindi sila basta-basta mapapatay just by heating. Kaya nag-create siya ng sterilization technique, no? Which is now called tyndallization from his name. Okay, but very, sabi ko nga, rigorous, no? Very, kumbaga parang ang dami mong dapat gawin dyan sa tyndallization. Actually, 3 araw na sunod-sunod yung tyndallization na yan. Okay, para talagang mapatay yung heat-resistant microorganism na yon. Okay, so tyndallization. Next is the word sterile. The word sterile was coined or introduced by Ferdinand Kohn. He said that when you say the word sterile, it means that it is completely free of all life forms. Ibig sabihin, walang living organism. So halimbawa, pag sinabi mo, pag ginamit mo yung adjective na sterile, halimbawa, sterile table, ibig sabihin yung table, wala pong kahit anong life form, no, na present. Okay? Sa table na yan. Gets? O kaya, let's say for example, yung inoculating loop ninyo, di ba, naglaboratory na kayo, di ba, dinirect nyo sa heat. So after directing it sa heat or sa flame, so that is already sterile. So ibig sabihin, that is completely free from all life forms. So that was coined by and introduced by Ferdinand Kohn. So next would be the aseptic technique. Alright. So, una, Dr. Oliver Wendelholm. So, simple. Naging observation niya, mas maraming nagkakaroon na, di ba sa mga nanganganak na mothers, mas maraming nagkakaroon ng sakit kapag nanganak sila in hospital compared sa bahay lang. So, mas konti ang nagkakasakit sa bahay, pag nanganak sa bahay. Okay? Si Dr. Ignal Semmelweis naman, he was known as the father of hand hygiene or hand washing. For the reason that dati sa mga medical setting, sa mga ospital, so halimbawa, autopsy ward, maternity ward, no? Yung mga doctors galing sa autopsy, imagine, when you say autopsy, you will dissect a dead body. They will not wash their hands. Siguro pupunasan lang nila, no, after handling a dead body, after studying the dead body, directly pupunta na sila sa maternity ward para mag-deliver ng baby. So what happened to the mothers? Nag-develop sila ng childbed fever. Okay? Childbed fever. Tapos, napansin yon ni Dr. Ignal Semmelweis. So sabi niya, why not wash our hands prior to delivering a baby? No? After a certain work, no, from other department, why not wash the hands? So yun nga, nung in-implement niya na yung hand washing, paghuhugas ng kamay, nabawasan yung cases ng childbed fever. Kaya up until now, ginagamit or ginagawa natin sa medical setting ang hand washing. Okay? That's because of Dr. Ignal Semmelweis. And then, aseptic technique by Joseph Lister. So, eto, yung ginawa niya naman, di ba, may sugat. So, nangyayari is that, yung mga sugat, di ba, nilalagyan niya ng mga gauze as cover. Right? So, in his technique naman, or in his work, yung covering ng wound, nilagyan niya ng chemical. Para saan yung chemical? The chemical will prevent the contamination of the wound. So, ibig sabihin, dahil kung sakali man na may contaminant na kumapit dun sa cover ng wound, hindi po yan dediretso sa wound. Kasi nga, mapapatay na yan or mai-inhibit na yan ng chemical na naka-incorporate dun sa cover. Naintindihan po ba? So, dyan nagsimula yung prevention of contamination or prevention of contaminants. So, which is, I believe na gawa nyo nung nakaraang laboratory ninyo. Tama po ba? Di ba gumawa na kayo ng bacterial smear if you're together with the other section? Tama po ba? Yeah. So, ibig sabihin, di ba, gumamit kayo ng lamp, alcohol lamp, di ba? Yung, what do you call this? Yung inoculating loop, right? In-sterilize ninyo. So, yun po ang tinatawag na aseptic technique. Okay? Why? You wanted to prevent contamination from the inoculating loop because you're going to transfer bacteria from the culture to the slide. Ano pa kaya yung aseptic technique na ginawa ninyo? Sige nga, may isa pa kayong aseptic technique na ginawa in this experiment. Ano pa yon? Naku, wala na, hindi na naalala. May isa pang aseptic technique, guys. Sa culture medium, anong ginawa ninyo? After opening. Aseptic technique din yon. What is that? Again, sorry?
Pass through flame.
Passing through flame. That's right. So, di ba kapag halimbawa, in-open nyo yung petri dish, right? Yung culture medium. Tapos, di ba, yung flame, padadaanan nyo yung mouth. Bakit? Kasi possibly, guys, yung sa mouth or opening ng petri dish ninyo, di ba, kasi nanggaling yan sa incubator. So, maaari po na meron na nag-attach na contaminant. Tapos, upon opening, baka mapunta dun sa culture ninyo. And another thing, you're not working in a biosafety cabinet or inside the biosafety cabinet. Have you seen the biosafety cabinet? May biosafety cabinet. Tagal ko na kasi hindi naglalab. May biosafety cabinet pa ba sa MP Lab 1? Supposedly kasi, you should be working inside the biosafety cabinet to prevent contamination as well. Kaso nga lang din, dahil madami kayo, hindi kakayanin na lahat ng work gagawin nyo sa biosafety cabinet, no? But in professional practice, everything is done inside the biosafety cabinet. So the only thing you can do to prevent contamination from the air is when you open your petri dish, when you open your culture, you pass it through flame and do not distant too much, no? do not be too distant too much from the alcohol lang. Okay, halimbawa, ito yung alcohol lang. Okay, halimbawa, ito yung alcohol lang. Tapos pag kukuha ka ng culture, andito yung sa may mukha mo. Hindi po. Dapat malapit siya doon sa alcohol lang. Kapag naka-open yung culture medium. Bakit po? Para yung heat coming from the alcohol lamp will will limit any contaminant that may be present sa environment or sa air. Naiintindihan po yun? Okay. Anyway, that would be naman part of your laboratory. Okay. Next, si Pasteur, nag-contribute din siya sa disinfection method. Nakagawa din siya ng isang disinfection method that is called pasteurization. So, dito naman, hinihit yung liquid. So, kadalasan ginagamit to sa mga food, no? Like halimbawa milk. So, etong temperatures na to, 63 to 65, 73 to 75, so magkaiba ang contact time yan, depende sa temperature. Kung 63 to 65, the contact time, ibig sabihin ng contact time, that's the duration, no? Of contact of the liquid to heat. Gaano katagal yung iinitin? 30 minutes? 63 to 65 degrees Celsius. Kung inakita ng 73 to 75, dapat 15 seconds lang yan. Okay? This is only to avoid or to prevent food spoilage. Para hindi po madaling mapanis. Kasi yung panis, ang cause naman din nun, yung mga microorganism din na nandun sa pagkain. So, to kill the food pathogen that caused the spoilage, we subject it to pasteurization. Okay? And then Robert Koch. Okay, si Robert Koch, para daw mapag-aralan yung mga microorganism, kailangan daw nating i-culture. Pag sinabi nating i-culture, i-propagate mo siya in vitro. Ibig sabihin outside the body of the host. Kaya nga, andyan na yung mga, ayan, katulad yan, yung mga culture media, yung nahawakan yung culture, that is propagated bacteria in vitro. Okay? Pag sinabi natin in vitro sa labas, propagated bacteria in vitro. Yung culture na kinuhanan nyo ng colony, okay? Siya po yung nag-introduce nun sa microbiology. Sabi niya, para daw mapag-aralan natin, kailangan daw natin i-separate, i-propagate in vitro so that we can study it and we can further identify yung pathogen. Okay? So that would be all for the history. So proceed na tayo sa iba't ibang microorganisms. So let me introduce the different microorganisms that starts with, of course, bacteria. So di ba nasabi ko na kanina sa inyo na ang bacteria ay under ng cellular type of microorganisms. Now, let me just add that cellular microorganism could be considered either as eukaryote or prokaryote. So alam niyo naman na to, pag sinabi natin eukaryote, kompleto ang cellular organelle. Right? Pag prokaryote naman, hindi kompleto. Bakit hindi kompleto? Kasi ang mga prokaryote, katulad ng bacteria, they only contain nucleoid region ribosome. Kumpara sa mga eukaryote na mayroong nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, etc. Sa mga bacteria, ang cellular organelle lang nila are the nucleoid region and ribosome. So what is nucleoid region? It is also nucleus. Hindi nga lang natin siya matawag na nucleus. Bakit? Kasi walang nuclear membrane. Kaya nga di ba meron tayo dati na ang eukaryote, these are containing true nucleus. Ang prokaryote, they lack true nucleus. Why we call this true nucleus? Because the nucleus of eukaryotic organism have nuclear membrane. That's why when you draw it, di ba, may dalawa yung circle. May circle sa loob at sa labas. Yung sa labas, yung plasma membrane. Yung sa loob, yung nuclear membrane. Sa loob ng nuclear membrane, nandun yung nucleus. Ang prokaryote, walang nuclear membrane. That's why we don't call it true nucleus. Rather, or instead, we call it nucleoid region. But pareho lang ang purpose niyan. Parehas lang ang purpose ng nucleus at nucleoid region. Magkaiba lang na wala yung isang nuclear membrane, yung isa meron. Clear tayo doon? Okay, anyway, we'll be dealing with the different bacterial components next week when we meet, no? Pag-uusapan natin yan. And also take note, these microorganisms, bacteria, are only unicellular. So, ibig sabihin, sa bawat bacterium, isa lang ang cell nila. Right? Isa lang ang cell. Isa lang ang nucleoid region. Clear po ba yun? Unicellular lang sila. bakit natin in-emphasize na ang bacteria ay unicellular lang? Kasi, katulad ng parasite. Parasite can be...
Ano yung bag mo? Paano yung bag mo? Hintay. Hoy. Iba yung bag mo?
Okay. Can be unicellular or multicellular. Ibig sabihin, guys, may dalawang klase ng parasite. So we have the protozoa and the worms. Okay? So sa mga worms, katulad ng tapeworm, okay? And different, basta pag-aaralan nyo naman yan sa parasite. Ngayon, ang mga parasite, they are very dependent on the host. Okay? So kung ano yung nutrient ng host, nakikipag-compete sila. Okay? Para dun sa nutrient na yon. That's why they are very dependent on their host. Understood? Now, parasites could also be categorized according to their locomotive structure. Okay? Kasi meron sa kanilang motile, may mga non-motile. So, dyan papasok yung tatlong locomotive structures nila, like flagella, pseudopodia, and cilia. Okay? Next, pag-usapan natin ang fungi. So, fungi, by the way, parasites are eukaryotic, ha? Parasites are eukaryotic, eukaryotic microorganism. Okay, next. Punta tayo sa fungi. Eukaryotic din sila. Now, the fungi are heterotrophic. Pag sinabi natin heterotrophic, hindi nila kayang gumawa ng sarili nilang pagkain. They cannot make their own food because they are achlorophyllous. Anong ibig sabihin ng achlorophyllous? They don't have chlorophyll, unlike plant cell. Ang plant cell, di ba familiar naman kayo na ang chlorophyll ginagamit for photosynthesis. So dahil wala silang chlorophyll, hindi sila nakakagawa ng pagkain. So how do they survive? They get the nutrient, they absorb the nutrient from the environment through the use of their structure called hyphae. Ito po, the hyphae. So yung hyphae, para siyang root, ugat, no? Na kumakapit sa surface, and then from the surface papunta sa ilalim, para siyang root na ano ba tawag dito? Mag-i-spread, no, under the surface. So yan yung magko-collect ng nutrient para sa mga fungi. Okay? And then similar to parasite, this could exist either as multi or unicellular also. So may dalawang forms din siya. So you have the yeast as the unicellular, mold as the multicellular. So those are the forms. Okay? May mga mold at may yeast form. Clear po ba yon? And then lastly, yung kanyang structure used for reproduction, that is spore. By the way, I forgot. No? Speaking of reproduction, kung ang fungi ay parehas, sexual or asexual. Alright? Kasi meron silang sexual spore, meron silang asexual spore. Reproductive organ or reproductive structure nila ang spore. Okay? Ang bacteria is only asexual. I'll repeat, bacteria is only asexual through what we call, ayan, nakalimutan ko, binary fission. Okay? Binary fission. Clear po ba? Okay. Next. Dahil nabanggit ko na ang spore kanina. Tama ba? May spore po kayong nabanggit kanina sa bacteria. Parehas po ba ang function ng spore, ng fungi at ng bacteria? Hindi po. Sa fungi, it is used for reproduction. Sa bacteria, it is used as a virulence factor. Now, let's define what's a virulence factor. And by the way, pag sinabi natin virulence factor, hindi lang yan nag-e-exist sa isa na pathogen. Marami pong virulence factor ang bawat pathogen. Alright? So, si Bacillus at Clostridium, meron silang virulence factor na spore. So, let's define what is a virulence factor. So, any feature, whether that is a structure of the bacteria, whether that is the biochemical composition of the bacteria, pag sinabi natin biochemical, ito yung mga enzymes, yung components nila, yung mga proteins nila, no? Gene, which enable the bacteria to cause diseases. So kumbaga, iyan yung nagiging reason bakit nakakapag-cause ng infection yung bacteria. Bakit siya pathogenic? Okay, now, let's discuss. Bakit si Bacillus at Clostridium naging pathogenic dahil sa spore? Kasi dahil nga yung spore na protektahan niya yung Bacillus or Clostridium from being killed, right? Magsusurvive siya. Pag nag-survive siya, makakapag-cause pa rin siya ng infection, right? So dahil buhay siya, na kumbaga na-surpass niya yung disinfection, makakapag-cause pa rin siya, kumbaga viable pa rin siya to cause the infection. Do you understand? That's why it's still considered as a virulence factor. Okay? Anyway, we will talk about more about the virulence factor next week. I'll give you more example of this. Okay? So, next, viruses. As I mentioned earlier, viruses are a cellular type of living organisms, right? Ibig sabihin, wala silang cellular organelle. Bakit nga ulit? Kasi meron silang nucleic acid, either DNA or RNA, proteins. Okay? Sometimes they have lipids, sometimes they don't. Kasi meron tayong mga tinatawag na enveloped viruses. Meron din tayong tinatawag na naked viruses. When you call them enveloped, meaning they are encapsulated with a lipid component. Kapag naked, wala silang encapsulation na lipid. So wala silang lipid. Naintindihan? So kung merong envelope, they have lipid. But if they don't have the envelope, then, if they are naked, then they don't have the lipid. Clear? Okay. And then, another thing, characteristic of, unique characteristic of the virus is they are very small, okay? They are very small, that they are obligate intracellular parasites. Okay? Ano yung ibig sabihin ng obligate intracellular parasite? So, very dependent sila sa host cell. Okay? Cell ha? Ibig sabihin, meron talaga silang target cell sa katawan natin. So, once they enter our body, they need to search for that target cell. Okay? So, halimbawa, si HIV. Si HIV, they can only replicate in CD4 type of cells. So example ng mga CD4 type of cells, mga macrophage. And then what do? They enter that target cell, pumapasok sila doon. Di ba wala nga silang cellular organelle? So ang nangyayari, ginagamit nilang machinery, yung host cell. Ginamit nila yung mitochondria, ginamit nila yung nucleus, gagamitin nila yung Golgi, gagamitin nila yung ribosome, lahat ng meron sa cell na yon, they will use it. And then afterwards, kapag nag-replicate na sila, masisira na yung target cell na yon. Naintindihan? Kaya nga kapag may HIV ang pasyente, di ba mahina ang immune system? Ba't mahina ang immune system? Because ang target cell nila are part of our immune system, which are the macrophage. Do you understand? So, ganun ka dependent ang mga virus sa mga host cell nila. I-compare natin siya sa parasite. Parasite, hindi pumapasok sa cell yan. Ha? They just attach to the surface of our body. Depende kung anong part, no? Pwede sa gastrointestinal, depende sa target din nila. Then, pagkakapit nila doon, yung mga nutrient na makikita nila doon, yun lang naman yung kakainin nila. Hindi katulad sa hindi katulad sa mga viruses, na gagamitin talaga nila yung cell natin just to replicate. Okay? Sige. Next, let's move on to the infection process. Okay. Now, the infection does not occur, no? Immediately after entry. After the mode of transmission, hindi siya agad-agad mangyayari. Bakit? Kasi upon entry, guys, kailangan niya munang i-colonize yung surface na pupuntahan niya. So, di ba, halimbawa, nagkaroon ng mode of transmission, aerosol, halimbawa. So, pumasok na sa respiratory tract natin, right? So, nag-attach na siya sa respiratory tract natin. Kailangan niya munang i-colonize yung respiratory tract natin. How? Kailangan niya munang i-bypass lahat ng line of defenses natin. Okay? Yung nabanggit ko kanina, first line, second line, third line. Pag na-breach na lahat yun, then, pwede na siyang mag-multiply. Okay? Pag nag-multiply na siya, na-compromise na yung immune system, papasok na tayo sa tinatawag na prodromal stage. Yung host is already actively capable of transmitting the infection. So, ibig sabihin nakakahawa na yun. Pag nag-multiply na yung microorganism sa katawan ng pasyente, papasok na siya sa prodromal stage, nakakahawa na siya, right? And meron na siyang mga signs and symptoms. Ibig sabihin, kung respiratory tract infection yan, may naubo na, may sipon na, may fever na, etc. Naintindihan po ba? Okay, so again, entry, colonization, multiplication. Okay po? So okay na yung pathogen, nabanggit ko na kanina. Okay, infections could also be localized or systemic. Pag sinabi nating localized, katulad ng example ko kanina, kung sa respiratory tract lang siya, then it is localized in the respiratory tract. But it has the capability to spread. Pag nag-spread na yan sa bloodstream natin, pag nag-spread na yan sa lymphatics, and it already spread to our different organs, or it already went to our different organs, then it is already systemic. Kapag involved na yung iba't ibang organs, systemic na yun. Okay? Next. Okay. Familiar naman kayo na meron tayong normal flora, di ba? Ano ibig sabihin ng normal flora? Ito yung mga normal resident na mga bacteria sa katawan natin. Okay? May mga anatomic site tayo na may normal flora. May mga anatomic site na walang normal flora. So, yung mga anatomic site na may normal flora, we call it non-sterile site. But if without normal flora, then that is called sterile site. You understand? So, ito po yung mga example. So, sa mouth, sa colon, no, sa urethra. So, ito yung mga example. Look at this. Urinary bladder, cerebrospinal fluid, and blood are all sterile. So, ibig sabihin, lahat ng specimen na manggagaling sa area na nabanggit natin, kapag halimbawa nanggaling sa respiratory tract. So, syempre, dadaan yan sa mouth, di ba? And of course, sa respiratory tract natin, meron din tayo, ha? So, yung sputum, yung mga nasopharyngeal specimen, anything that comes from our respiratory tract are non-sterile. Naintindihan? So, what about the urine? Eh, di ba mamang urine ang galing sa urinary bladder? Bakit kaya ang urine non-sterile? Kasi dadaan siya ng urethra. Pag dumaan siya ng urethra, of course, makahaluan na siya ng normal flora. Then urine is non-sterile. Nakuha po ba? Okay? Next. Can normal flora be a pathogen? But tandaan po ha, ang normal flora, under normal condition, hindi po dapat mag-cause ng infection. I will repeat. Under normal condition, halimbawa, you are immunocompetent. Immunocompetent. Ibig sabihin, your immune system is okay. Your immune system is working. Your immune system is at its tawag dito, good condition. Then, dapat yung normal flora mo will behave. Dapat hindi siya magkukos ng infection. But when the time that your immune system got compromised, pwede po yung normal flora maging pathogen. Nakuha po ba yon? So number 1, dadami sila kapag immunocompromised yung host. Ibig sabihin, bumagsak yung immunity. Kuha po ba yon? So sasabihin ng mga normal flora natin, halimbawa sa respiratory tract, no? Like for example, 'di ba, yung mga 'di ba napapansin niyo, ang pneumonia common sa elder tsaka sa mga baby or infant or mga newborns or sa mga children. Bakit? Kasi once na na-compromise, na-compromise, no, yung immune system nila, mabilis yung multiplication nung normal flora sa respiratory tract nila. Meron kasing Streptococcus pneumoniae. Streptococcus pneumoniae, na one of the most common cause of pneumonia in children and in elderly patients. So, nagde-develop sila ng pneumonia. Okay? O kaya, pangalawang reason, nag-transfer ng site. Okay, halimbawa, paano ba nagkakaroon ng UTI? Di ba may mga myth regarding UTI? Ano nga yung sinasabi sa atin dati? Nung hindi pa natin alam syempre hindi pa tayo masyadong aware regarding sa medical field, no? Ano yung sinasabi sa inyo ng parents ninyo na pwede daw maging cause ng UTI? Sige nga. Huwag kang kumain yan. Kasi magkakaroon ka ng UTI. Huwag ka daw kakain ng pansit canton. Ano pa? Chicheria. Soft drinks. Diba? Okay. Totoo din naman yung salty food. Totoong salty food. Okay? Nakaka-contribute talaga yan. Pero, pinaka-common is the hygiene. Okay? Hygiene. Bakit? Kapag nag-transfer, at saka yung, attitude mo towards health. Katulad na, sige, punta muna tayo sa hygiene, sa mga babae. Right? Common kasi ang UTI sa mga babae. Bakit? Kasi yung structure ng reproductive organ natin, vagina, malapit siya sa anal canal. So, yung anal canal, syempre connected yan sa gastrointestinal tract. So, ano bang meron sa gastrointestinal tract? Ayan, ang dami. Bacteroides, lactobacillus, etc., etc. Ayan. Ngayon, kapag mali yung way ng hygiene mo, let's say, yung wash mo, di ba dapat from up, down. Hindi dapat yan magba-back and forth. Up, down, yung manner of, or yung direction ng washing. Hindi pwedeng down, pataas. So, ini-smear mo lang. So, ibig sabihin, nata-transfer yung normal flora natin from the anal canal going to the urinary tract. Naintindihan? So, another thing, kapag nagtitigil kayo ng urine, so, pag tinatamad kayo pumunta sa CR, no? Tinitiis nyo for one whole day, hindi kayo pupunta sa CR half day, hindi kayo pupunta sa CR, hindi kayo masyadong umiinom ng tubig, what happens? Diba sabi ko nga kanina, ang urinary bladder, halimbawa, ito yung urinary bladder sa taas, ito yung urethra. So ngayon, diba si urethra ay non-sterile. Si urinary bladder sa taas is sterile. So ngayon, pag hindi nagtitigal ka ng ihi, yung normal flora, supposedly sa urethra, pwede yan umakyat pataas. Okay? Pwede umakyat yan papunta sa urinary bladder. So from urethra to the urinary bladder, nag-transfer ng site. So yung mismong normal flora mo sa urethra, napunta sa urinary bladder. Kasi supposedly guys, pababa dapat yan eh. Dapat nga nawawash out ng urine yung urethra mo. Dapat nababawasan ng urine yung normal flora sa urethra mo. Kaya kailangan mag-urinate. Okay? Next. Ano pa ba? Oo, tama. Yun na yun. Transfer of sites at saka pag naging immunocompromised. May tanong po dito. Yung mga soft drinks, hindi na po siya ganon ka-connected sa tawag dito, sa UTI. Pansit Canton, para siguro dahil maalat ang Pansit Canton, pwede yun. Salty food. Bakit salty food? Kasi ang salt, di ba, can retain water. So, ibig sabihin, pagka kumain ka ng maalat, hindi ka masyadong mag-urinate. Kasi nga, dahil ang daming salt na kinain mo, yung water na supposedly isi-secrete mo, hindi mo ma-secrete, hindi mo ma-excrete. Kasi nga, na-retain dahil sa high salt concentration sa katawan mo. Right? So, similarly, sa pagtitigil ng ihi, yung sa salty food, hindi ka rin mag-urinate. So, ang nangyayari, umaakyat ngayon yung normal flora from the urethra to the urinary bladder, causing urinary tract infection. Kaya madalas, di ba, pag nagkakaroon kayo ng UTI, ano sinasabi sa inyo ng doktor? Inom kayo ng maraming tubig. Ba't kayo pinapainom ng maraming tubig? Para mag-urinate kayo, para ma-flush out yung normal flora from the urethra. Okay? Para mabawasan. Gets? Okay na. Next. Punta na tayo sa modes of transmission. Okay. You have to remember that we have three major reservoir. Ibig sabihin ng reservoir, for microorganism to including bacteria, pwedeng manggaling sa environment. So kasama lahat yan, water, soil, air. Pwedeng manggaling sa animal, pwedeng manggaling sa human. Okay? Sa normal flora ng ibang human. Okay. Now, the mode of transmission can be direct or indirect. So, pag sinabi natin direct, from the reservoir, diretso sa host. Okay? Host natin is human. Ngayon, example tayo sa environment. Halimbawa, sa water. If the water is contaminated with, let's say, Leptospira interrogans, yung causative agent ng leptospirosis. Okay? Leptospira interrogans is a spirochete. So, makukuha mo to when you have an open cut, right? Meron kang sugat. Tapos, nagkaroon ng exposure sa tubig na contaminated with the leptospirosis agent. So, magkakaroon ka ng leptospirosis. So, example naman sa animal, halimbawa, cat scratch disease. So, pag na-scratch ka ng cat, no? Tapos yung kuko niya is contaminated with the agent, so maaari kang magkaroon ng cat scratch disease. Sa human naman, pwedeng sexual contact. Okay? So, eto. Human to human tayo. Pwede pong congenital. Human to human yan. Congenital, ibig sabihin, vertical transmission yan. Pag sinabi natin vertical transmission from mother to baby, pwedeng nasa loob pa lang ng womb ni mother, nag-cross ng placenta, no? Napunta kay baby, then that's vertical. Or during the delivery. Pag during the delivery, let's say Neisseria gonorrhoeae, infected si mother, nasa vaginal canal yan. So dadaan si baby sa vaginal canal. Magkakaroon ng contact yung conjunctiva, causing ophthalmia neonatorum. So infection po yan sa conjunctiva ng mga baby. Okay? So that's also a congenital contact or a vertical transmission. Understood? Example ng sexual contact, syphilis. So that is caused by Treponema pallidum. Okay? Next. Pwede din naman na indirect. Sa indirect, between the reservoir and the host, meron tayong intervening agent. So when you say intervening agent, that could be a vehicle, food, water, aerosol, pwede ring mga vector, arthropods kadalasan, sila mosquito, fleas, ticks, yan. So yan yung mga common na intervening agent. So mula sa reservoir, pupunta sa intervening agent, from the intervening agent, pupunta na sa host. That's indirect. Okay? So ito yung mga example. Limbawa, sa viral, okay? Sabihin natin, hepatitis. Diba? Hepatitis A. So makuha mo yun sa pagkain. Salmonella, makuha nyo yun sa chicken. Pag hindi nyo masyadong niluto yung chicken, makakakuha kayo ng salmonella. Okay? Sige. Next. Okay. Pwede ko bang iwanan sa inyo itong infectious process? Kasi anyway, ito naman, na-discuss naman na to sa inyo sa CPH at sa sa epidemiology. Okay, sige. Punta tayo dito kay true pathogen at opportunistic pathogen. So, si true pathogen, capable of causing infection sa healthy host. Healthy. Ibig sabihin, immunocompetent. Immunocompetent. Okay. Immunocompetent host. Kapag na-breach niya, yung sinasabi ko kaninang first line, second line, third line, then that is a true pathogen. When you say naman opportunistic pathogen, it means that the host is immunocompromised. Ibig sabihin, mababa yung immune system ng pasyente. Tapos nagkaroon siya ng infection. Ang tawag mo doon sa pathogen na yon, opportunistic pathogen. Okay? Next. Ito, na-discuss na to sa inyo sa MLSP. Am I correct? Sabi ng ibang kabatch ninyo, familiar na daw kayo sa innate, natural, adaptive, acquired. Are they telling the truth? Kasi sabi niya, okay na kami dyan, ma'am. Yes or no? Okay na kayo dito? Okay, very good. So sige po, paki-screenshot na lang. Baka mamaya meron din akong matanong dyan na kinuha ko dyan, no? Sige po. Okay? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Screenshot ng mga CC, charot. Okay na po? Next. Pag nag-discuss tayo next week, wala nang screenshot ha. Sulat kayo next week. Kasi bored na tayo ha. Wala na tayong ganito. By the way, ang quiz natin, pen and paper po. Magdala po ng black ball pen. Okay na? Sige. Next. Punta tayo dito. Okay. Nosocomial infection, okay, acquired in the hospital. Community acquired sa mga healthcare facilities sa community. Endogenous infection. Okay, endogenous infection, ibig sabihin, yung pathogen galing sa normal flora natin. So halimbawa, yung example natin kanina sa UTI, from the urethra, pumunta sa urinary bladder, endogenous infection ang tawag doon. Okay? Next, exogenous, anything that comes from the external environment. So halimbawa, di ba yung mga reservoir natin? Environment, water, soil, air, o kaya galing sa ibang human, galing sa animal. So when that is the source, walang problema. Pag galing ang source or galing ang pathogen in the external environment or other host or other animal, then that's exogenous. Okay? Alright. Ay, ang aga nating matatapos 6:30 pa lang. Okay. Sigurado kayo, wala kayong tanong? Alam nyo, kahapon, inabot ako ng 3 oras sa ibang section. Oo, talaga, alas 7 kami nag-start. Kung alas 7 kami nag-start, tatatapos kami ng 10. Hindi ko alam kung bakit. Ngayong araw na to, Bakit kaya ang bilis? Baka kasi siguro nakapagsulat na, no? O kaya mabilis siguro kayong pumick up. Baka kaya ganun. Okay. Ready na po ba for the microbial taxonomy? Okay na? Sige, let's start. So, when you say taxonomy, guys, ano na pala, no? Magkikita-kita na tayo, no? Lagi kasi tayong online nung nakaraang semester. Ngayon, mag-face-to-face na tayo. Okay. Excited na kayo sa Bhakti? Excited na? Bakit halo-halo? Yung iba masaya, yung iba malungkot. Excited na? Hindi. Kaya mo yan. Basta mag-aaral lang. Ang dami niyo kasing naririnig tungkol sa Bhakti, no? Hindi totoo yun. Madali lang ang Bhakti. Okay, di ba no? Yung iba dito. By the way, since nagdagdag tayo ng supposedly section 10 lang talaga ang kayang i-offer na Bhakti for this year or for this semester, nagdagdag ng isang section which is yung 11th, no? Sa 11th, kadalasan po nito mga transferee or yung returning na ibang students. Question, sino po sa inyo ang ngayon lang na pumasok sa school? I mean, pumasok sa university. Meaning transferee. Sino po? Maka-start lang. Patingin? Okay. Sige. Marami. O sige, magkita tayo next week. Next week ko kayo chichikahin, ha? Sige. Anyway. Okay, tatanong ko ulit yan next week. Okay, let's proceed na po para maaga tayong matapos, no? Another question, bago ulit ako mag-start. Meron kayong class bago to? I mean, do you have another class? Meron. Face-to-face or online? Dash 8, wala. So ito lang ang papasukan ninyo? Yung iba may lab sa morning. Okay. Sige. Face-to-face sa Bhakti Lab. Anong oras ang Bhakti Lab ninyo? Hapon na? 1 p.m. na? Morning. Tapos, okay. Sige. Okay. Okay na. Tinatanong ko lang kasi, basta, okay na yon. Okay, baka kasi PE, yung iba pumapasok na naka-PE, tapos alam niyo yon yung amoy ng room, ay grabe. Pagkatapos ng PE. Medyo na ako noon. Medyo, na ako doon. Grabe talaga. Lalo na pag ang PE nila alauna, syempre di ba ang init, yung pawis nila, halo-halo na yung amoy. Pag uwi ko sa bahay, ay grabe. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. Hindi naman PE. Oo, asin kilig. Talaga. Gabi talaga. Iba. Naghalo-halo. Amoy, basta. Tapos aircon yung room. Grabe. Okay, anyway, let's move on to taxonomy. Okay. Sa taxonomy, guys, hindi natin to ina-apply not only in bacteriology, but also in other living entities. Okay? So, katulad ng animals, plants, microorganism, parasite, bacteria, fungi, meron lahat na taxonomy yon. So, when you say taxonomy, para makapag-provide tayo ng consistent na paraan, no, para may mga classification, may groupings, mayroong tamang pangalan, no? Tama yung pare-parehas tayo ng identification sa mga organisms. So kumbaga parang meron tayong guidelines, okay? Para universal. Taxonomy is divided into 3 interrelated disciplines. So meron tayong classification, nomenclature, and identification. Alright, let's start with the classification. When you say classification, kina-classify natin sila or kina-categorize natin yung mga organisms into group. Diba? Sa school, sa laboratory, may grouping kayo. Ganun din ang mga organism. Dahil sobrang dami nila, kailangan natin sila i-classify. No? And we have several classification schemes. No? Specifically for bacteria, we use 3. Okay, number 1 is yung kay Linnaeus, si Carl von Linn. So, ginagamit din natin tong Linnaeus classification sa ibang organism, even sa plant, sa animal. So, we use this hierarchical classification system. If you're familiar, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, di ba? Domain, may iba't ibang kingdom, tapos bawat kingdom, para siyang root, di ba? Tapos, sa bacteria, limited lang tayo sa family, genus, and species. Limited lang tayo sa family, genus, and species. Bakit? Kasi nga po, katulad ng sabi ko kanina, unicellular lang ang bacteria. Ibig sabihin, isa lang ang cell ng bacteria. Therefore, limited ang characteristic. Right? Limited ang characteristic nila. So, hindi na po natin nagagamit yung ibang hierarchical classification system like order, class, phylum, kingdom, domain. We only use family, genus, species. Pero don't worry, under the species, meron pa po yung mga subclassification. Okay? So, like for example, Enterobacteriaceae, that's the family. Right? Tapos, ang genera, under niyan, Escherichia, Klebsiella, Proteus, Morganella, Salmonella, Shigella. So marami pa pong genera under ng isang family. Tapos under ng bawat genera, may iba't ibang species. Okay, like for example, for Escherichia, we have coli. For Klebsiella, meron tayong Klebsiella pneumoniae, Klebsiella oxytoca. Sa Enterobacter, meron tayong Enterobacter cloaceae, Enterobacter aerogenes, etc. Okay? Ngayon, for a while lang guys, sorry. Okay. Ngayon, ang Linnaeus classification, guys, this is the basis of classification. So, pinagsama-sama nila into one family, into one genus, into one species, yung mga may pare-parehas na morphology, may pare-parehas na physiology, and genetic trait. So, yun yung basis ng grouping dito. Okay? Next, pag family ng bacteria ang binabasa mo or ang ina-identify natin, tandaan ninyo na it always end in suffix A, C, E, A, E. Okay? Katulad na example natin kanina, Enterobacteria, CA. Pag nakita mo yung CA sa dulo, it only means that that is the family of the bacterium. Naintindihan po ba? Okay. So, yung ACAE na yan po ay according sa ICNP. So when you say ICNP, that is the International Code of Nomenclature for Prokaryote. So sila yung nagde-devise or sila yung nag-e-establish ng guideline para pare-parehas ang pangalan, para pare-parehas ang classification, ang identification ng mga microorganism. Naintindihan? Okay. Next. Okay na yan? Under the species, katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, may mga subclassifications pa po. Katulad ng subspecies. So when you write the subspecies, right, katulad nito. Okay, kanina, ang genus ay Klebsiella, ang species ay Pneumoniae. Right? Tapos, ang pangalan ng subspecies ay Pneumoniae din. Pwede naman yon, parehas pangalan ng species at subspecies. Pero look at the word between the two Pneumoniae, sub-SP. Okay? Sub-SP dot. Yan po yung proper nomenclature. Okay, mamaya i-discuss natin yan. So, ganyan po natin isusulat kapag mayroong subspecies. Alright, so anyway. So, under ng species, may subspecies. Under ng subspecies, mayroong biotype, serotype, genotype pa. Okay? Anyway, makaka-encounter naman kayo yan as we go along. No, only the family. Only the family name ang may CA. Okay? Only the family name ang may CA. Yung genus at species, wala. Okay? Sige. Next. Move on muna tayo dito sa pangalawang classification. Sa pangalawang classification, guys, divided naman siya into 5 kingdoms. So this was established naman by Robert Whittaker. Kaya natin siya tinawag na Whittaker's tree. The basis of the classification is based on the similarity and differences in the structure and how do they obtain their nutrition. Paano sila kumukuha ng pagkain or paano sila nakakakuha ng pagkain. So, we have the plants, the animals, the protista. Ito yung under dito yung mga protozoa. Monera, dyan under ang bacteria. Okay? Sa Monera po under ang bacteria. Then, we have fungi. Okay? And then, yung pangatlo na classification, yung tinatawag nating three-domain system. So sa three-domain system, you have bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. Remember earlier, meron tayong prokaryote at eukaryote? Okay. So we can also divide this, itong three-domain system, as to whether it is prokaryote or eukaryote. Yung eukarya, mga eukaryote yan. So kung nakita nyo dito sa ilalim, no? Nandyan sila animals, sila fungi, sila plants. Andyan yung mga parasites, yung mga flagellates. Okay? Then, sa archaea at saka bacteria, parehas yan na prokaryotes. Ngayon, ang pinagkaiba nila is, number one, ang mga archaea, okay, tandaan po ha, are living under extreme condition. That's why ang tawag natin sa kanila, mga extremophile. So ano ba yung mga extreme environmental condition na yan? Halimbawa, sa mga gastrointestinal tract ng mga animals, di ba they are capable of digesting plants, they are capable of digesting raw meat, right? Bakit? Very, ano ba tawag dito? Very acidic yung kanilang gastrointestinal tract in comparison to human. So kumbaga mas extreme yung condition sa mga tiyan ng mga animals compared sa human. Okay? Therefore, kaya sila tinawag na extremophile. Okay, number two, they are also capable of living dun sa mga deep layer ng ocean, yung mga madidilim, yung talagang nasa pinakailalim, no? Deep layer of ocean. So, dun din natin sila makikita. Okay, so, pangalawang difference nila, so number one, found in the, they are, tawag dito, growing under extreme condition, right? Yung pangalawa is that they do not have peptidoglycan in their cell wall. Wala pong peptidoglycan. Ang cell wall ng bacteria, we will discuss that next week, meron. Do you understand? Meron pong peptidoglycan. Wait lang ha. Okay. Meron pong peptidoglycan yung cell wall ng mga bacteria. Sa archaea, wala. Pero yung structure nila as bacteria and archaea are the same. Halos parehas lang naman sila. Ayan lang yung major difference ng archaea sa bacteria. Clear po yun? Ulitin ko ha, ang archaea at bacteria ay parehas na prokaryote. Ang eukarya, yung mga animal cell, fungi, and the others na hindi na mga eukaryotes are under the eukarya. Clear? Okay. So we're done with the classification. Let's move on to nomenclature. Tatandaan po ninyo, pag sinabi nating nomenclature, that is the guideline or that is the naming. Okay? So tandaan nyo lahat may label. Lahat merong, bakit kailangan pare-parehas ang pangalan ng mga bacteria sa iba't ibang lugar, no? Sa mundo. Bakit Staphylococcus aureus, kung yan ang pangalan yan sa Pilipinas, yan din yung pangalan yan sa US, sa Europe, kung saan mang kontinente sa mundo. Para universal. Okay? Universally recognized. You understand? And that is established, yung guidelines na yan, that is established by the ICMP. Yung kanina sa family name na ACEAT, sila rin ang nag-establish ng naming ng mga bacteria. So let's start with tawag dito, binomial, no? Pag sinabi nating binomial, ibig sabihin, dalawa pong pangalan ang ini-include natin. So, kung ang human may first name at surname, ang bacteria may genus at may species. So, katulad na example ko kanina, Klebsiella pneumoniae. So, you have the genus and the species. Klebsiella, genus, pneumoniae, species. Clear yon? Okay, next. That's binomial. When you put the genus and the species together, that is what we call binomial system. Okay? Next. Tandaan, ang genus, you always capitalize the first letter. Capitalize the first letter. So as you can see here, capital letter K, then followed by all small cases. So capital K, small letter E, small letter L, E, D, S, I, E, L, L, A. Then, look at the species. The species are in small cases, all small cases. Clear po? So, ang capital letter lang po natin, yung genus. Malinaw po ba yon? Okay, another thing. Kung napansin nyo kanina, pag nagsusulat ako ng pangalan ng bacteria, palagi ko siyang ina-underline. Okay? Because that's the guideline. Kapag isusulat mo siya, meaning in script, you have to underline it. But if it is meant to be printed, or when you look, or when you read it on print, when you read it in journals, kailangan pong naka-italicize. Ulitin ko ha, pag isusulat, naka-underline. Kapag ipiprint yan, o kaya makikita mo sa mga prints, kailangan naka-italicize. Klaro po ba? Wala pong magsasabi sa akin na, halimbawa, 1 to 10, no? Ma'am, tama naman yung spelling ko, kaso siniro kita. Okay? Perfect lahat. Na-identify mo lahat ng bacteria. Kaso nga lang, mali ang nomenclature. Nakalimutan mong underlinean. That is still considered wrong. Are we clear? Usapan na natin yun ngayon. We have to follow the correct nomenclature for the bacteria. Clear? Huwag kakalimutan na ina-underline ko. Walang magsasabi sa akin, ma'am, ina-italicize ko po yan. Sabi po, pwede italicize. Kapag piprint, pwede ang italicize. Pero kapag isusulat, kailangan po underline. Pwedeng ang underline diretso, pwedeng ang underline each word. Wala pong problema as long as it is underlined. Clear po ba yon? Okay. Next, another thing. Halimbawa, pwede po bang i-abbreviate ang genera? Accepted naman yan sa ICMP. You can abbreviate the genera and then followed by the species name. Pero, hindi recommended. Bakit hindi recommended? Kasi po, maraming genera ang maaaring mag-start sa letter K. Diba? Klebsiella, Kingella, okay? Curtia. So, pare-parehas po yun na letter K. So, para maiwasan natin ang confusion and also para hindi nyo makalimutan, okay, baka kasi mamaya K lang nilagay mo kasi hindi mo na maalala kung ano yung meaning ng K. Diba? So, para sa assessment natin, hindi accepted ang, hindi accepted ang abbreviation ng genera. Okay? Malinaw yan ha. Hindi po natin tatanggapin ang abbreviation ng genera. Kailangan kompleto yung pangalan. Clear po ba yun? Okay. Next, another guideline. Pwede nating palitan ng SP yung pangalan ng mismong species. Alright? So, halimbawa, if you are not after naman the specific species, like for example, magre-refer ka lang ng isang species, kahit anong species, no? Under ng isang genera, hindi mo na kailangan isulat yung pangalan ng species. Okay? Ulitin ko. If you are not specifically referring to a specific species, okay? Hindi mo naman dinedescribe yung specific na species na yon. Gusto mo lang magbigay halimbawa ng example, no? Under one genera, let's say. So you can replace, no, the name of the species with the SP. Clear po ba yon? Okay? So halimbawa, let's use it in a sentence. Halimbawa, Klebsiella SP, halimbawa, is non-motile. Okay? So, hindi mo din na-describe yung isang specific na species ng genera. Sinasabi mo lang na ang Klebsiella ay non-motile. Nakuha po ba yon? So, pwedeng si pneumonia yun, pwedeng si, pwedeng si oxycoca yun, right? Pero, pag ginamit mo yung SPP, halimbawa, you are now referring to the group of species within the genus. Ibig sabihin, pwedeng ang nire-refer mo na dyan, 2, 3, 4, 5 na species ng genera. Or, you are referring to the entire genera. Kuha po ba? So, that is SPP naman. Okay? Anyway, I'll be giving you examples naman of how you use that pagka meron na tayo, kapag sa iba nating lecture. Basta tandaan nyo, pag singular, at hindi naman kayo after sa specific species, you can use SP. If you're referring to a group, no, of species within a genera, then you can use SPP. Okay, now, other than this, pwede rin po natin siyang isulat as this. Alright? So, ibig sabihin guys, ito yung informal designation. Ibig sabihin, hindi natin siya i-underline, hindi mo siya i-capitalize, at hindi rin siya i-italicize. Pareha siya ng Klebsiella SPP. So yan yung counterpart sa informal designation. Nakuha po ba yun? Pag formal, kung nagre-refer ko sa grupo ng genera, no, grupo ng species sa isang genera, then capital letter K, L-E-B-S-I-L-L-A, space SPP. Underline po ang genera. Hindi natin in-underline ang SP at SPP, ha? Tapos, pag informal designation, ang katumbas ng Klebsiella SPP ay maliliit na letter ng Klebsiella na hindi natin in-underline nor italicize. Clear po ba yun? May tanong kanina. Wait lang. Hindi po in-underline ng SP at SPP. Okay? Hindi po. Tapos, eto, naging example ko na rin to kanina. Paano kung may subspecies? So, yung mga mismong pangalan lang ang laging may underline. Yung mga abbreviated na SP, SPP, sub-SP, walang underline yon. Clear? Okay. May tanong po sa nomenclature. Clarification? Wala? Sigurado? And lastly, identification. So for the identification, guys, I always compare, no? Di ba, ang goal natin sa bacteriology, kaya kayo nagpa-bacteriology ngayon para matutunan ninyo kung paano mag-identify ng bacteria. Tama ba? So, lagi kong kino-compare yan sa kung paano nyo kilalanin yung friends ninyo. Okay? So, halimbawa, paano mo ba ma-identify yung kaibigan mo kapag halimbawa nakahalo siya sa group of people? So nasa isang nakasama, marami siyang kasama. Tapos i-describe mo siya sa kasama mo. Sino dyan yung friend mo? Di ba? So sasabihin mo, yung friend ko yung yung nakita mo yon, yung mahaba yung buhok, yung singkit, di ba? Yung maputi, yung matangkad, yung payat. Siya yun. Yung may nunal dito, etc., etc. Ganon din ang bacteria. You need to know their characteristics as well. Okay? Katulad na, phenotypic characteristic. Pag sinabi natin phenotypic characteristic, yun yung observable characteristic. Diba, ang next na activity ninyo is staining. Tama po ba? Mag-i-stain na kayo, gram stain, acid-fast stain, tapos titignan nyo na sa microscope yung bacteria. Right? So, yun po yung microscopic at staining characteristic ng bacteria. So, ito yung makikita nyo doon. Makikita nyo yung shape ng bacteria, makikita nyo doon yung arrangement, no, ng bacteria, makikita nyo doon yung kulay ng cell wall ng bacteria. Now, bawat bacteria may unique na characteristic. Diba? Bawat friend ninyo, iba-iba naman ang itsura. Pero din ang mga bacteria, iba-iba din ang itsura nila. Okay? Iba-iba rin ang phenotypic characteristic nila. Pag sinabi mong phenotypic, yan yung observable characteristic nila. Iba-iba ang nutritional requirement, iba-iba ang antigenic property nila, iba-iba ang itsura nila pag pinatubo mo sila sa culture medium, iba-iba ang environmental requirements nila, etc. So, ngayon pa lang, sinasabi ko na sa inyo na ang kailangan ninyong matandaan sa bawat bacteria ay yung mga karakteristik nila. Bakit kailangan yung matandaan yon? Kasi friends nyo sila, charot. Kailangan nyo silang kaibiganin. Kasi pag di nyo sila kaibigan, you know what will happen at the end of the semester. So you make them your friends. Huwag nyo gawing kaaway. Pag ginawa nyo kaaway, ang mga bacteria, sasabi ko sa inyo, pagdating ng dulo, X kayo. Okay? So, enemies talaga kayo. So, i-friend nyo siya. Parang how you know your friends, ganun nyo rin kilalanin ng mga bacteria. Ha? Hindi yung galit na galit, bakit hindi kita matandaan? Bakit pa ganon? Bakit pa out of 21 lang lagi? Ganon. Kasi hindi nyo sila friends. So, i-friend nyo sila. Ha? Kailangan nyo matandaan yung pangalan nila. Kailangan nyo matandaan yung, may kaibigan ba kayo na hindi nyo kilala yung pangalan? May kaibigan ba kayo na hindi nyo alam yung itsura? Diba? So, you always have to befriend them. Para, maganda yung mga magiging scores ninyo sa assessments and exams. Okay? So, yun. And then, another characteristic is the genotypic. Pag sinabi natin genotypic, ito naman yung genetic makeup. So, huwag kayong mag-alala, hindi na ito kasama sa mga aaralin natin sa buong SEM. Hindi na natin pag-uusapan yung genotypic characteristic. Puro phenotypic characteristic po ang i-memorize ninyo sa bawat bacteria. Puro phenotypic. Sa genotypic kasi, ito naman, hindi kasi ito na-observe. Okay? You have to perform molecular techniques for you to be able to observe the genetic makeup of a certain organism. So, halimbawa, pag sinabi natin genetic makeup, ano yung nucleic acid content nila, ano yung sequence ng DNA nila, ano yung sequence ng amino acids, etc., genome, etc. So, mga nucleotides, hindi na po ito kasama sa mga aaralin natin for this semester for bacteriology. Okay? Clear po ba yon? So hanggang dito na lang po tayo, no, sa discussion na to. May tanong po ba? Clarifications or questions? Guys, sa